This is Mr. Applewhite speaking. Do not attempt to adjust your device. There is nothing wrong with it. I am here to deliver a message. Join Psycho Bunny Death Cult and our anti-censorship campaign. Free your mind. Free your head.
Hi.
What's up?
How are you guys? So we're continuing. Hey, Connor.
Hey, Connor.
We are continuing the Hellbound Heart. And tonight you're in for a treat because Frank is the one reading.
We'll probably switch off.
We'll probably switch off here and there, but...
Because I don't read too good. I went to the Derek Zoolander School for kids who can't read good.
Hey, Calvin.
Actually, I think I do read pretty well. I don't know. Maybe I do. I read pretty well to myself, so.
You read well in your head.
In my head. I had a zombie song just got stuck in my head now. Oh, I'm good.
Don't you hate it when it gets stuck in your head?
You can turn that off.
Okay.
Yep. All right.
What did I do? It's fine. Keep going.
What happened? There we go. Uh-oh.
You're fine.
There we go.
Going.
We had a glitch. So
Could have kept going.
I know. Hey.
Hi, Connor.
Yes,
Miss
titties.
Faces and titties, huh? Woo!
All right. Here we go. She reached for his erect. No, just kidding. I'm like, man, chapter 6 is starting off good.
We're starting on chapter 6, guys.
She reached for his erect inches. She quivered.
Okay, hold on.
She quivered.
Well, you know what? I'm going to start something really fast here. Warning, the following video contains explicit language which may be offensive to some viewers and or inappropriate for children. Definitely inappropriate for children. The content within this video is intended for mature audiences only. Viewer discretion is advised.
All right. So let's do this. All right. It turned cold in the third week of September. An Arctic chill brought a rapish. Is that a rapish?
Where?
Rapicus?
Rapicious.
Rapicious.
Rapacious.
Rapist. It brought a
rapist, okay?
The wind brought a rapist chill.
A rapey chill, like our cat.
Brought it
Dirty Frank.
on a. Okay, I can't do this. I'm getting all.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Wind that stripped the trees of leaves in a handful of days. The cold necessitated a change of costume and change of plan. Instead of walking, Julia took the car, drove down to the city center in early afternoon, and found a bar in which the lunchtime trade was brisk but not clamorous.
Woo!
Who?
You.
The customers came and went. Young Turks from firms and lawyers and accountants debating their ambitious parties of wine imbibers. Oh, okay, that's just
imbibe, like
I know I get that, but it's just fucking English people. Anyway, imbibers whose only claim to sobriety was their suits, and more interestingly, a smattering of individuals who sat alone at their tables and simply drank. She garnered a good crop of admiring glances, but they were mostly from the Young Turks.
Those damn Turks.
Those damn Young Turks. It wasn't until she bought a bit. God damn it. It wasn't until she's been in the place an hour, and the wage slaves were returning to their treadmills.
Treadmills?
Yes. That she caught sight of somebody watching her reflection in the bar mirror. For the next 10 minutes, his eyes were glued to her. She went on drinking, trying to conceal any sign of agitation. And then, without warning, he stood up and crossed to her table. Drinking alone, he said. Drinking alone, he said. She wanted to run.
Drinking alone, he said.
Her heart was pounding so furiously she was certain.
Hey, Nellie.
Hey, Nellie. She was certain he must hear it, but no. He asked her if she wanted another drink. She said she did. Clearly pleased not to have been rebuffed. Wouldn't it be rebuffed?
Are you drinking alone?
Yeah, I kind of am. Actually, you got high.
And no, rebuffed is proper.
Is it rebuffed?
Mm-hmm.
Sorry. Rebuffed. He went to the bar, ordered doubles, and returned to her side. He was ruddy featured and one size larger than his dark blue suit. Dear God, this guy was fit. Only his eyes betrayed any sign of nervousness, resting on her for a moment only, then darting away like a startled fish.
Oh no! Connor slipped on a lid, fell, scraped her knee, and dropped barbecue sauces today at work.
Oh, that's
the only reason I giggle is because I've totally done shit like that. I used to work at a buffet.
There would have been a serious conversation that she had already decided. She didn't want to know much about him, his name, if necessary, his profession, and martial status. I was about to say martial arts. Do you know Kung Fu?
The spippy lights!
If he insisted beyond that, let him be just a body. He's like, as it was, there was no danger of a confessional. Yeah. I'm sorry. She meant more talkative, paving stones. He smiled occasionally.
Thank you.
A short, nervous smile that showed teeth to even to be real. And offered more drinks. She said no, wanting the chase over with as soon as possible, and instead asked if he had time for a coffee. He said he had. The house is only a few minutes from here, she replied. And they went to her car. She kept wondering as she drove. The meat on the seat beside her. Yeah.
Really? The meat on the seat beside her?
Why this was so very easy. Well, he's just a big old guy is what it is.
Hey, Damon Baird. He had his meat out on the seat beside her?
He had his floppy out.
He's all
flippity flap. You want
hey,
this?
Hey, Damon Baird. Hey, Sykes.
Y'all want this? It'd be awesome if there's a redneck in England and she just picked this guy.
That's called the Pikeys.
Wasn't the man was planning a victim with his influential eyes and his artificial teeth? Born, did he but know it to make this journey? Yes, perhaps. That was it. She was not afraid because all of this was so perfectly predictable. As she turned to the key in the front of the door and stepped into the house, she thought she heard a noise. And thought she heard a noise in the kitchen. Had Rory returned home early? Ill, perhaps? She called out.
Whore!
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 It's always the red horse. There was no reply. There was an empty. The house was empty, almost. For the threshold on, she had the thing planned meticulously. She had closed the door. The man in a blue suit stared at his manicured hands and waited for his cue. I get lonely sometimes, she told him, as she brushed past him. It was a line.
She just brushed past.
That's what she did. She came up with in bed the previous night. He only nodded by way of response. The expressions of his face in mingling of fear and incredulously. He clearly couldn't quite believe his luck. Do you want another drink? She asked him. Or shall we go straight upstairs? He only nodded again. Which? I think maybe I have drunk enough already. Upstairs then. He made a decisive move in her direction as though he might have intended a kiss. She wanted no courtship. However, skirting his touch, she crossed to the bottom of the stairs. I'll lead, she said. Meekly, he followed. At the top of the steps, he glanced around at him. She glanced around at him and caught him dabbing sweat from his chin with his handkerchief. She waited until caught up with her.
Magically, hello. Connor, whore.
Caught up with her.
I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name.
Magali? Well, they're putting...
It's like dirty, ring hold dirty, or dirty like $20 an hour dirty. It's like $20 an hour dirty.
This is actually about to get dirty. This is getting good right now. Caught up with her. Okay. The door had been left ajar. Come on in, she said. He obeyed. Once inside, it took him only a few moments to become accustomed to the gloom, and a further time to give voice to his observation. There's no bed. She closed the door and switched on the light. She had hung one of Rory's old jackets on the back of the door. In its pocket, she left the knife. He said, again, no bed. What's wrong with the floor? She replied. The floor? Take off your jacket. You're warm. I am, he agreed, but did nothing. So she moved across to him and began to slip the knot off his tie. He was trembling, poor breathless lamb. While she removed the tie, he began to shrug off his jacket. Was Frank watching this? She wondered.
Curve. Hope they use lube.
Her eyes strayed momentarily to the
knife's
wall.
For.
Yes, she thought. He's here. He's there. He sees. He knows. He licks his lips and grows impatient. The lamb spoke. Why don't you, he began, why don't you maybe do the same? Would you like to see me naked? She teased. The words made his eyes gleam. Yes, he said thickly. Yes. I like that. Very much, very much. He was unbuttoning his shirt. Maybe you will, she said. He gave her that dwarf smile again. It's a game. It is a game. Is it a game? He ventured. If you want it to be, she said, and helped him out of his shirt. His body was pale and waxy, like a fungus. His upper chest was heavy, his belly too. She put her hands...
Pale and waxy like a fungus?
He's a corporate type that gets no sun, and he's a big old fat dude.
But like a fungus.
Like probably fungus on a dog shit? I don't know.
I was thinking like a mushroom. But
they're English. They're freaking English.
Like a mushroom cap.
You know, English people, either they're off in the desert somewhere fighting wars, or they're literally pale as fuck in the middle of rain.
All right.
Mm-hmm. So,
sitting on a cornflake, waiting for the rain to
if you wanted
come.
to be, she said, help him. Okay, I've lost my place. She put her hands to his face as he kissed her fingers. You're beautiful, he said, spitting the words out as though they'd been vexing him for hours. Am I? You know you are loveliest woman. You know you are the loveliest, lovely woman I have ever set eyes on. Sorry. That's gallant of you, she said, and turned back to the door. Behind her, she heard his belt buckle clink, and the sound of cloth slipping over his skin, and as he dropped his trousers. So far, no further, she thought.
Yes, Connor.
She had no wish to see him babe naked. I know, that's their term, which is our term is butt-ass naked. It was enough to have him like this. She reached into the jacket pocket. Oh, dear, the lamb suddenly said. She let the knife lie. What is it? She asked, turning to look at him. If the ring on his finger hadn't already given his status away, she would have known him to be a married man by the underpants he wore. Baggy and overwashed, an unflattering garment bought by a wife who had long since ceased to think of her husband as in sexual terms. I think I need to empty my bladder, he said. Too many whiskeys? She shrugged a small shrug. and turned back to the door. Won't be a moment, he said at her back, but her hand was in the jacket pocket. Before the words were out, and as he stepped towards the door, she turned on him.
Hey, Damon,
slaughtering.
Sorry. Go ahead.
Slaughtering knife in hand. His pace was too quick to see the blade till the very last moment, and even then, it was bemusement that crossed her face.
Crossed his face.
Crossed his face. I'm sorry. Not fear. It was short-lived. Look. It was a short-lived look. The knife was in him a moment after, slicing his belly through the ease of the blade and overripe cheese. Wow. She opened one cut and then another.
So, like, his stomach was like a mushroom, and even when it was cut?
She's slashing like this. And
so she sucks at this.
This is her first kill ever. She's never done this before.
So she's probably sitting there like...
But yeah, she's like this. She's literally like this, going like that.
Don't
like
actually
that.
Hit me.
Sorry.
Hey, Mush!
Hey! So... As the blood started, she was certain the room flickered, and bricks and mortar trembling to see the spurts that flew from him. She heard a breath's length to admire the phenomenon. No more before the lamb let out a wheezing curse and insisted of moving out of the knife's range, as she had anticipated. Took a step toward her and knocked the weapon from her hand. It spun across the floorboards and collided with the skirting. That is odd. So the panels of the wall.
Skirting.
Yeah. Then he was upon her. He put his hand into her hair and took a fistful. It is written so fucking weird.
I told you.
It seemed his intention was not violence but escape. For he relinquished his hold as soon as he pulled away from the door. She fell against the wall, looking up to see him wrestling with the door handle. His free hand clamped to his cuts.
To his guts.
Pretty much. She was quick now. Across to where the knife lay, up and back toward him in one fluid motion. He had got the door open by inches, but not far enough. She brought the knife down in the middle of his pockmarked back. Ew. It means he had tons of back knee.
He had back knee.
He yelled and released the door handle. She was already drawing the knife out and plunging it into him a second time, and now a third and fourth. Indeed, she lost count of the wounds she made. Her attack lent venom by his refusal to lie down and die. He stumbled around the room, grieving and complaining, flowing blood onto his buttocks and legs. Finally, after an age of his facial, fecal fart? No, I don't know. Anyway,
Faruchial?
I don't know. He kneeled over and hit the floor. This time, she was certain her sense did not deceive her. The room or the spirit in it responded with soft sighs of anticipation. Somehow, a bell was ringing. Remember, the bell rings when they come. When hell opens up.
Does she see the guy's entrails? I think so.
I don't know. She really just kind of sliced at his belly is what they said when blood came out.
He's kind of a fatty, so she might just see like fat. This is some Lorena She did not cut his dick off.
No, he still had underwear on.
She did not cut it off.
Almost in an afterthought, she registered that the lamb had stopped breathing. She crossed the blood-spangled floor to where he lay and said, "Enough." Then she went to wash her face. As she moved down the landing, she heard the room groan. There was no other word for it. She stopped in her tracks and almost tempted to go back. But the blood was dry on her hands, and its stickiness revolted her. In the bathroom, she stripped off her flowered patterned blouse and rinsed first her hands, then her speckled arms, and finally her neck. The dousing both chilled and braced her. It felt good. That done, She washed the knife,
Oh,
rinsed
cool.
the sink, and returned along the landing without bothering to dry herself or to dress.
Hell yeah. Damon Baird is watching us on his TV on the Xbox.
Nice. That's what I do every now and then with Odd Mother. I watch it in my living room. Sorry. I had to drink.
I was like, do you want me to read?
Yeah, I'm getting my kind of setter. You're a little bit better at this than I am. We can take turns. Wow.
There's a lot of pages.
Here. That's where I left off.
Where were you?
Top page, top right page.
She had no need for either. The room was like a furnace as the dead man's energies pulsed from his body. They didn't get far.
It's an Oingo Boingo song.
Already, the blood on the floor was crawling away towards the wall where Frank was.
I'm right here.
The beads seeming to boil and evaporate as if they came within range of the skirting within range of the skirting boards. She watched, entranced, but there was more. Something has happened to the corpse. It was being drained of every nutritious element, the body convulsing as its innards were sucked out. Gases moaning in the bowels and the throat. The skin desiccating in front of her. Startled eyes. At one point, the plastic teeth dropped back into the gullet. The gums withered around them. And in mere moments, it was done. Anything the body might have usefully offered by way of nourishment had been taken. The husk that remained would not have sustained a family of fleas. She was impressed. Suddenly, the bulb began to flicker. She looked to the wall, expected it to tremble and spit her lover from hiding, but no. The bulb went out. There was only the dim light that crept through the age-beaten blind. "Where are you?" she said. The walls remained mute. "Where are you?" Still, nothing. The room was cooling. Her breasts had grown goose flesh. Goosebumps, guys. Goosebumps.
Well, they're in England.
She peered down at the luminous watch on the lamb's shriveled arm. It ticked away, indifferent to the apocalypse that had overtaken its owner. It read 4:41. Rory would be back any time after 5:15, depending on how dense the traffic was. She had work to do before then. Bundling up the blue suit and the rest of the clothes, she put them in several plastic bags and then went in search of a larger bag for the remains. She had expected Frank to be here to help her with this labor, but as he hadn't shown, she had no choice but to do it herself. When she came back to the room, the deterioration of the lamb was still continuing, though now much slowed. Perhaps Frank was still finding nourishment to squeeze from the corpse, but she doubted it. More likely, the pauperized body, sucked clean of marrow and every vital fluid, was no longer strong enough to support itself. When she had parceled it up in a bag, it was the weight of the small child, no more. Sealing the bag up, she was about to take it down to the car when she heard the front door open. The sound undammed the panic she had assiduously kept from herself. She began to shake. Tears pricked her sinuses.
Hey, Carol.
Hey.
Hello. Oh, thank you, Carol. She's
Not
sharing it
now,
out.
she told herself. But the feelings would simply not be suppressed any longer. In the hallway below, Roy said, "Sweetheart, sweetheart." She could have laughed. But for the terror, she was here if he wanted to find her. His sweetheart, his honey bun, with her breasts newly washed and a dead man in her arms. "Where are you?" She hesitated before replying, not certain that her larynx was the equal of the deception. He called a third time. His voice changed timbre as he walked into the kitchen. It would take him a moment only to discover that she wasn't at the cooker stirring sauce. Is that what he expected from her?
Well, I mean, she is a wife.
Oh,
She should
okay.
be in the kitchen.
Sure.
I think. I don't know. I do all the cooking here mostly. I mean,
Excuse you?
I do a lot of the cooking.
No, we do about equal.
I don't know. On our random show we do cooking. I mean, I do cooking. We cooked a cow's tongue one time. We freaked people out.
That was great.
Uh,
Ew, I can't watch it.
I'm like, this is
Get over
horror.
yourself.
This is horror group. What this is a cow
So-
tongue. Have you guys never tried lingua?
No.
Holy crap, we're up to 23.
Then he would come back and head up the stairs. She had 10 seconds, 15 at most, attempting to keep her tread as light as possible for fear he heard her movements overhead. She carried the bundle into the spare room at the end of the landing, too small to be used as a bedroom, except perhaps for a child. They had used it as a dump. Half-emptied tea chests, pieces of furniture they had not found a place for, all manners of rubbish. Here she laid the body to rest a while. Behind an upended armchair. Then she locked the door behind her, just as Rory called from the bottom of the stairs. He was coming up. Julia? Julia, sweetheart, are you there? She slipped into the bathroom and consulted the mirror. She showed her flushed portrait. She picked up the blouse she'd left hanging over the side of the bath and put it on. It smelled stale, and there was undoubtedly blood splattered between the flowers, but she had nothing else to wear. He was coming along the landing. She heard his elephantine tread. Julia? This time, she answered, making no attempt to disguise the tremulous quality of her voice. The mirror had confirmed what she feared, and there was no way she could pass herself off as undistressed. She was obliged to make a virtue of liability. Are you all right? He asked her. He was outside the door. No, she said. I'm feeling sick. Oh, darling. Oh, I'll be fine in a minute. He tried the handle, but she'd bolted the door. Okay, if she's in the shitter, why are you trying to jiggle the handle?
She's in the shitter. So real fast, I know we're almost done with this chapter, but let's explain. We got some new people in here. So John, this is our
The Hellbound Heart,
this is our band book club for Psycho Bunny and Psychomantium 13.
Psycho Bunny Death Cult, and Psychomantium 13.
Are Liz and Frank and Liz.
He's Liz.
I'm Liz. We are, we're here doing this, and we also have the random show. We also do Roots Bleed Red and everything like that. Mm-hmm. Which Roots Bleed Red we do like serial killer stuff and everything like that. So
yeah,
and yeah.
All right, I will do this.
Carol, thank you for sharing this out.
Thank
this
you.
Is awesome.
All right, so can you leave me alone for a little while? Do you want a doctor? No, she told him. No, really, but I wouldn't mind a brandy. Brandy?
Brandy? She's back in town?
I'll be down in 2 ticks. Whatever madam wants, he quipped. She counted his steps as he trudged to the stairs, then descended. Once she'd calculated that he was out of earshot, she slid back the bolt and stepped out onto the landing. The late afternoon light was failing quickly. The landing was a musky tunnel. Downstairs, she heard the clink of glass on glass. She moved as quickly as she dared to Frank's room. There was no sound from the gloomed interior. The walls no longer trembled, nor did the distant bell toll. She pushed the door open. It creaked slightly. She had not entirely tidied up after her labors. There was dust on the floor, human dust, and fragments of dried flesh. She went down on her haunches and collected them up diligently. Rory had been right. What a perfect housefrau she made. As she stood up again, something shifted in the even denser shadows of the room. She looked into the direction of the movement, but before her eyes could make sense of the form in the corner, a voice said, "Don't look at me." It was a tired voice, the voice of somebody used up by events, but it was concrete. The syllables were carried on the same air that she breathed. "Frank," she said.
Hi. If I was coming back from hell, that's how it would be like. Don't look at me. I wouldn't do that. They're like, I'd come back from hell and I'm like, hey, look, you murdering this guy, it kind of brought me back.
So let's do this.
I'm just saying, you got to murder a few more people for me to come back fully. But we're going to do this. We're going to get through this. Let's go.
So, yes, came a broken voice. It's me. From downstairs, Rory called up to her. Are you feeling better? She went to the door.
I kind of am.
Much better, she responded. With her back, the hidden thing said, don't let him near me.
Oh, my boss is in here. Hey, Casey!
The words coming fast and fierce. It's all right, she whispered to him. Then to Rory, I'll be with you in a minute, but put on some music, something soothing. That's not soothing. Rory replied that he would and retired to the lounge. I'm only half made, Frank's voice said. I don't want you to see me.
Actually, I'd be like,
don't want anybody to see me.
I'm only a quarter.
Not like this.
Just don't look at me. Look away.
The words
look to the ground, but don't look at me.
Halting once more and retched. I have to have more blood, Julia. More? And soon. How much more? She asked the shadow. This time she caught a better glimpse of what lay in wait there. No wonder he wanted no one to look. Just more. Though the volume was barely above a whisper, there was an urgency in his voice that made her afraid. I have to go, she said, hearing music from below. This time the darkness made no reply. At the door, she turned back. I'm glad you came, she said. As she closed the door, she heard a sound, not unlike laughter behind her, nor unlike sobs.
So, real fast, he's pretty ungrateful. I'm just saying, she murdered someone for him.
He still needed more.
And brought him back from hell. So, I'm burping, sorry.
This one.
Yes, so we're going to do something real quick.
What is that one?
I don't know. Let's find out.
I'm afraid. Oh,
it's a new Roast Bleed Red.
All right, so we're going to go to a commercial. Tonight is sponsored by everybody. Yeah. Let me show you a couple people that we also work with on WLFEDB. All right, Jade is awesome. You should check her out. All right. So, yeah, wanted you guys to see that.
Yes.
Yep. No. Like the movie. All right, so chapter 7, guys.
7.
Kirsty, is that you? Yes, who's this? It's Rory. The line was watery, as though the deluge outside had swept down the phone. Still, she was happy to hear from him. He called up so seldom, and when he did, it was usually on behalf of both himself and Julia. Not this time, however. This time, Julia was the subject under discussion. Ooh. There's something wrong with her, Kirsty. I don't know what. What do you mean? Ill? Maybe she's just strange with me. She looks terrible. Have you said anything to her? She says she's fine, but she isn't. I wondered if maybe she'd spoken with you. Haven't set eyes on her since your housewarming.
The bitch is trying to fix a toxic dude who's in hell right now.
Right?
And she's every chick like that.
That's another thing. She doesn't even want to leave the house. That's not like her. Do you want me to have a word with her? Would you? I don't know if it would do any good, but I'll try. Don't say anything about me talking to you. Of course not. I'll call you at the house tomorrow.
For sure.
Tomorrow. So, it has to be tomorrow. Yes, I know. I'm afraid I'll lose my grip, Julia. Start slipping back.
The first thing she says, so I was talking to Rory. Fuck. I wasn't supposed to say that.
I'll give you a call from the office on Thursday. You can tell me what you make of her. So, slipping back? They'll know I've gone by now. Who will? The gash. The bastards that took me. They're waiting for you. Just be on the wall. What were you looking at?
Sykes. Well, there's also what's the the one with Zydrate comes in a little glass vial. What's the name of that? Well, they made Repo Man.
Repo the Genetic Opera?
There you go. Repo Man was based on that, but still, that was such a good movie. But yeah, they did do that.
So Rory told her how grateful he was, and she in turn told him that it was the least a friend could do. Then he put down the phone, leaving her listening to the rain on the empty line. Now they were both Julia's creatures, looking after her welfare, fretting for her if she had bad dreams. No matter, it was kind of togetherness. The man with the white tie had not bided his time. Almost as soon as he set eyes on Julia, he came across the room to her. She decided, even as he approached, that he was not suitable, too big, too confident. After the way the first one had fought, she was determined to choose with care. So then, White Tie asked what she was drinking. She told her to leave her alone. He was apparently used to rejections and took it in stride, withdrawing to the bar. She returned to her drink. It was raining heavily today. I mean, it's England. What do you expect?
Well, it's also, she would want it to, rain men. It's raining men. Gonna stab them.
Had been raining now for 72 hours, on and off. And there were fewer customers than there had been the week before. 1 or 2 drowned rats headed in from the street, but none looked her way for more than a few moments. And time was moving on. It was already past 2. She wasn't going to risk getting caught again by Rory's return. She emptied her glass and decided that this was not Frank's lucky day. Then she stepped out of the bar into the downpour, put her umbrella up, and headed back to the car. As she went, she heard footsteps behind her, and then White Tie was at her side saying, "My hotel's nearby." "Oh," she said, and kept on walking. But he wasn't going to be shrugged off so easily. "I'm only here for 2 days." "Don't tempt me," she thought. "Just looking for some companionship." He went on, "I haven't spoken to a soul. Is that right?" He took hold of her wrist, a grip so tight she almost cried out. That was when she knew she was going to have to kill him. He seemed to see the desire in her eyes. "My hotel," she said. "I don't like hotels. They're so impersonal." "Have you got a better idea?" he said. She had, of course. He hung his dripping raincoat on the hall stand. She offered him a drink, which he welcomed. His name was Patrick, and he was from Newcastle. "Down on business. Can't seem to get much done." "Why is that?" He sure. What?
It's just him. Stayed alive. You.
I'm covering it up. Hold on.
Oh, real fast. Oh, sorry. You opened the box.
I
came.
I actually have a closer depiction to what the real one would have looked like. The real leader.
No.
Slightly.
That's more fan made, but it's actually pretty cool. But they would.
That is a fan made.
Pinhead would look like. The actual leather and stuff like that, and the way they're described in there, it's actually not black. It's more just like tan, like skin color leather. Like it's skin.
Like
it's
Ed Gein made his
skin.
outfit.
Yeah. It's if they ever do the remake of Pinhead of Hellraiser, they're supposed to be more in line with the book here, which is fucking awesome.
Why is that? He shrugged. "I'm probably just a bad salesman. Simple as that." "What do you sell?" "What do you care?" She grinned.
This dick.
She would have to get him upstairs quickly before she started to enjoy his company.
What do you sell?
"Why don't we dispense with the small talk?" she said. It was a stale line, but it was the first thing that came to her mind. He swallowed the last of his drink in one gulp and went where she led. This time, she had not left the door ajar. It was locked, which plainly intrigued him. "Are you?" he said when the door swung open.
She's becoming a smarter killer.
She went first. He followed. This time, she had decided there would be no stripping. If some nourishment was soaked up by his clothes, then so be it. She was not going to give him a chance to realize that they weren't alone in the room. "Going to fuck on the floor, are we?" he said casually.
This dude's experienced.
"Any objections?"
Nah, I'm good. Let's do this.
"Not if it suits you," he said.
You got knee pads? Because that shit hurts.
And clamped his mouth over hers, his tongue frisking her teeth for cavities. There was some passion in him, she mused. She could feel him hard against her already. But she had work to do here. Blood to spill and a mouth to feed. She broke his kiss and tried to slip from his arms. The knife was in back of the jacket on the door. Whoops. While it was out of reach, she had little power to resist him.
You done
"What's the
fucked up,
problem?" he said.
Aaron.
"No problem," she murmured. "There's no hurry either. We've got all the time in the world." She touched the front of his trousers and assured him. Like a stroked dog, he closed his eyes. "You're a strange one," he said.
Bitch, you a strange one. There ain't no bed in here. What's going on here?
"Don't look," she told him. "Huh? Keep your eyes closed." He frowned but obeyed. She took a step backwards towards the door and half turned into a fumble in depths of the pocket, glancing back to see that he was still blind. He was, and unzipping himself. As her hand clasped the knife, the shadows growled. He heard the noise, his eyes sprang open. "What was that?" he said, reeling around, peering into the darkness. "It was nothing," she insisted, as she pulled the knife from its hiding place. He was moving away from her across the room. "There's somebody, don't. Here." That last syllable faltered on his lips as he glimpsed a fretful motion in the corner beside the window. "What in God's..." he began as he pointed to the darkness. She was at him and slicing his neck open with a butcher's efficiency. Blood jumped immediately, a fat spurt that hit the wall with a wet thud. She heard Frank's pleasure and then the dying man's complaint, long and slow. His hand went up to his neck to stem the pulse, but she was at him again, slicing his pleading hand, his face. He staggered, he sobbed. Finally, he collapsed, twitching. She stepped away from him to avoid the flailing legs in the corner of the room. She saw Frank rock to and fro. "Good woman," he said. Was it her imagination, or was his voice already stronger than it had been, more like the voice she'd heard in her head 1,000 times these plundered years? What?
Sykes. Look, hon, I finally partly used I know you put Kennedy, but Kennedy on eBay.
Squirt, squirt, blood everywhere.
Everybody's a squirter if you hit an artery.
True.
This is awesome.
The doorbell rang. She froze. "Oh, Jesus." "It's all right," the shadow replied. "He's as good as dead." She looked at the man in the white tie and saw that Frank was right. The twitching had all but ceased. "He's big," said Frank, "and healthy." He was moving into her sight, too greedy for sustenance to prohibit her stare. She saw him plainly now for the first time. He was a travesty, not just of humanity, of life. She looked away. The doorbell was ringing again for longer. "Go and answer it," Frank told her. She made no reply. "Go on," he told her, turning his foul head in her direction, his eyes keen and bright in the surrounding corruption. The bell rang a third time. "Your caller is very insistent," he said, trying persuasion where demands had failed. "I really think you should go answer the door."
He's like trying to be like, "Look,
Get your ass downstairs, bitch.
I'm gonna do some dirty shit to this body right now. Can you please leave me alone? I don't want to be judged. Even though he's been ripped and torn apart by Cenobites in hell for an eternity, even though it's been only a couple months while he's been in hell. But he's like, don't look at me while you do this shit. Please go away. Please get the fuck away from me.
Again, the bell. It was better to answer it, perhaps. She was already out of the room, trying not to hear the sounds Frank was making. Better to open the door to the day. It would be a man selling insurance, most likely, or a Jehovah's Witness with news of salvation. Yes, she wouldn't mind hearing that. The bell rang again. Coming, she said, hurrying now for fear he'll leave. She had welcome on her face when she opened the door. It died immediately. Kirsty, I was just about to give up on you. I was asleep. Oh. Kirsty looked at the aspiration that had opened the door to her. From Rory's description, she'd expected a washed-out creature, but what she saw was quite the reverse. Julia's face was flushed, strands of sweat darkened hair glued to her brow. She did not look like a woman who had just risen from sleep. A bed, perhaps, but not sleep. I just called by for a chat. Julia made a half shrug. Well, it's not convenient, just at the moment. I see. Maybe we could speak later in the week. Kirsty's gaze drifted past Julia to the coat stand on the wall. A man's gabardine hung from one of the pegs, still damp. Is Rory in? She ventured. No, of course not. He's at work. Her face hardened. Is that what you came around for? To see Rory? No, you don't have to ask for my permission, you know. Yeah, he's a grown man.
She's gaslighting right now.
You two can do whatever the fuck you'd like.
Damn. Jealousy right there.
Kirsty didn't try to debate the point. The Volt face left her drizzle. Go home. I don't want to talk to you.
Freaking hell, man.
She slammed the door. Kirsty stood on the step for half a minute, shaking, as little doubt of what was going on. The dripping raincoat, Julia's agitation, her flushed face, her sudden anger. She had a lover in the house. Poor Rory had misread all the signs. She deserted the doorstep and started down the path of the street. A crowd of thoughts jostled for her attention. At last, one came clear to the pack. How would she tell Rory? His heart would break. She had no doubt of that. And she, the luckless telltaler, she would be tainted with the news, wouldn't she? She felt tears close. They didn't come, however. Although
poor Kirsty, man.
Poor Kirsty.
She needs to meet those Cenobites as soon as possible.
Another sensation, more insistent, overtook as she stepped into the pavement from the path. She was being watched. She could look at the back of her head. Was it Julia? Somehow she thought not. The lover then? Yes, the lover. Safely out of the shadow of the house, she succumbed to the urge to turn back and look in the damp room. Frank stared through the hole he had made in the blinds. The visitor, whose face he vaguely recognized, was staring up at the house, at his very window. Indeed. Confident that she could see nothing of him, he stared back. He had certainly set his eyes on more voluptuous creatures, but something about her lack of glamour engaged him.
It's her.
Such women were, in his experience, more entertaining company than beauties like Julia. They could be flattered or bullied into acts the beauties would never countenance, and be grateful for the attention. Perhaps she would come back, this woman. He hoped she would. Kirsty scanned the facade of a house, but it was all blank. The windows were either empty or curtained, yet the feeling of being watched persisted. Indeed, it was so strong she turned away in embarrassment. The rain started again as she walked along Lodovico Street, and she welcomed it. It cooled her blushes and gave cover to her tears that would be postponed no longer. Hey, Matthias.
Hello, Matthias. How are you? Thank you for watching.
Thank you. Yep. All right. So Julia had gone back upstairs trembling and found White Tie at the door, or rather, his head. Not that head.
Oh. Oh.
This time, either out of excess of greed or malice, Frank had dismembered the corpse. Pieces of bone and dried meat lay scattered about the room. There was no sign of the gourmet himself. She turned back towards the door, and he was there, blocking her path. Mere minutes had passed since she'd seen him bending to drain energy from the dead man. In that brief time, he had changed out of all recognition. Where there had been withered cartilage, there was not ripening muscle.
He was growing in front of her. Like his body was literally in front of her, his muscles and everything are coming.
Like building up.
Or they're building up because he actually has. The first victim brought him over and gave him some nourishment. This victim now is actually feeding his body.
The map of his arteries and veins were being drawn anew. They pulsed with stolen life. There was even a sprout of hair, somewhat premature perhaps, given his absence of skin, on the raw ball of his head. None of this sweetened his appearance a jot. Indeed, in many ways it worsened it. Previously, there had been scarcely anything recognizable about him, but now there were scrapes of humanity everywhere, throwing into yet greater relief the catastrophic nature of his wounding. There was worse to come. He spoke, and when he spoke, it was with a voice that was indisputably Frank's. The broken syllables had gone. "I feel pain," he said. His browless, half-lidded eyes were watching her every response. She tried to conceal the queasiness she felt, but knew the disguise inadequate. "My nerves are working again," he was telling her, "and they hurt." "What can I do about it?" she asked. Maybe some bandages? Bandages? "Help me bind myself together." "Is that what you want?" "But I need more than that, Julia. I need another body."
Yep. Every time he fed, he would be regenerated. Yeah.
Yep.
The movie, I think it's only a couple victims, but it gets in depth here. It's a lot of victims, actually.
Yep. So, another? She said. "Was there no end to this?" "What's to lose?" he replied, moving closer to her. At his sudden proximity, she became very anxious. Reading the fear in her face, he stopped his advance. "I'll be whole soon," he promised her. "And when I am..." I'd better clear up," she said, averting from his gaze. "When I am, sweet Julia." "Rory will be home soon." "Rory?" He spat out the name. "My darling brother. How in God's name did you come to marry such a dullard?" She felt a spasm of anger toward Frank. "I loved him." And then, after a moment's pondering, corrected herself. "I thought I loved him." His laugh only made his dreadful nakedness more apparent. "How can you have believed that? He's a slug. Always was. Always will be. Never had any sense of adventure. Unlike you? Yeah, unlike me." She looked down at the floor. A dead man's hand lay between them. For an instant, she was almost overwhelmed by self-revulsion. All that she had done and dreamed of doing in the last few days rose up in front of her, a parade of seductions that had ended in death. All for this death that she had hoped so fervently would end in seduction. She was as damned as he was, she thought. No fouler ambition could nest in his head than presently cooed and fluttered in hers. Well, it was done. "Heal me," he whispered to her. The harshness had gone away from his voice. He spoke like a lover. "Heal me, please." I will, she said. I promise you I will. And then we'll be together. And she frowned. What about Rory? We're brothers under the skin, Frank said. I'll make him see the wisdom of this, the miracle of it. You don't belong to him, Julia, not anymore. No, she said. It was true. We belong together. We belong to each other. That's what you want, isn't it? It's what I want. You know, I think if I'd had you, I wouldn't have despaired, he said. Wouldn't have given away my body and soul so cheaply. Cheaply? For pleasure, for mere sensuality. In you. Here, he moved towards her again. This time, his words held her. She didn't retreat. In you, I might have discovered some reason to live. I'm here, she said. Without thinking, she reached across and touched him. The body was hot and damp. His pulse seemed to be everywhere, in every tender bud of nerve, and every bludgeoning sinew. The contact excited her. It was as if, until this moment, she had never quite believed him to be real. Now it was incontestable. She had made this man, or remade him. Used her wit and her cunning to give him substance. The thrill she felt touching this too vulnerable body was the thrill of ownership. This is the most dangerous time, he told her. Before now, I could hide myself. It was practically nothing at all. But not anymore. No, I've thought of that. We must be done with it quickly. I must be strong and whole, at whatever cost. Do you agree? Of course. After that, there'll be an end to the waiting, Julia. The pulse in him seemed to quicken at the thought. Then he was kneeling in front of her. His unfinished hands were at her hips, then his mouth. Forsaking the drudges of her distaste, she put her hand upon his head and felt the hair silken like a baby's, and the shell of his skull beneath. He had learned nothing of delicacy since last he'd held her, but despair had taught her the fine art of squeezing blood from stones. With time, she would have loved from this hateful thing, or know the reason why.
So that's where we're going to stop for tonight.
Oh, God.
Yeah, it gets pretty in deep. We're almost done with actually the book.
Yeah, we have a few more
we're at chapter
chapters.
8. 3 more chapters to go. I think we could finish it next week.
Possibly.
Possibly.
We may have 2 more episodes.
So this was a good night.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for those of you who stayed a little bit longer.
We're going to play a couple things for you real fast, and then we're out.
All right, I got 2 videos.
Wednesday night is Odd Mother. She's doing Mirrors Part 2 on Psycho Bunny and Psycho Mantium 13.
Keep an eye out for the Padded Room podcast.
Yeah.
They're popping up usually on Tuesdays. On Thursday, we have a break. Sid is, I believe, Wednesday and Friday.
Sid is Friday and Saturday.
Friday and Saturday right now?
Yep.
And then we are Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah, we do the random show at Sid does Into the Fire on Friday, and then Saturday at 6 with WLFE, which is we were part of too. And then we have our random show on Saturday night, which I think we're going to be doing stuff on death metal and cooking for some odd reason. That's just how we do things.
Well, because like you can get really brutal chopping things up.
Yeah, pretty much. And then Sunday night is our 10th episode. 10th episode of
Tune in.
Roots Bleed Red through
With WLFE
and Psycho Bunny, Psycho Mantium, all this other stuff. So we are doing John Wayne Gacy. We're starting that.
And I may or may not be dressed like a clown. I don't know.
Who knows? Who knows?
We'll see.
So we're going to play a couple things for you guys, and then we're out. Do Odd Mother.
just one time to set on fire and dream of seasons with you. Oh, paralyzed, shattered and I lost control. Fell into a hole, where's the light?